Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm African Gamer here. Hopefully you guys are doing great. So today's video is going to be an Apex Legends video, and these are actually some of the updated settings that I personally use. And this is a little bit different from my older video, which was about the settings, and these settings genuinely helped me out. I've gotten so many more kills, and I've been getting I'm pretty much so much more consistent, and just in general they work perfect. So to make things as quick and brief as possible, I actually have not screenshotted every single part of the settings. I only screenshotted the parts that I've changed slash modified to show you guys in the fastest way possible. So now let's cut to the chase. Right here you guys will see a screenshot of the gameplay tab, and I already changed the first two parts. The first, of course, switching the interact prompt style to compact from default. And the reason why I did this is because personally I like the compact look. I don't really need that, information of whatever it is, because I played this game long enough to understand what each item does. Moving on, the button hints, it's the same case. I don't necessarily need it. It makes the UI look much cleaner because I already know what every button does within Apex Legends, and it's just not necessarily to have that on my screen at all times. Now moving on to the crosshair damage feedback, I do it with X with shield icon. I think that's the default one. Either way, it's best to keep it on. Now under that, damage numbers, this is an important one that I switched. I switched it from the default one, I forgot what it was called, but now I switched it to floating because I do not know what it is, but the floating looks much cleaner and it feels much better, and I feel much more comfortable, and I've been getting much more downs and knocks using floating than I did with the original one. So yeah, it's a little weird. Now moving on to ping opacity, I've actually switched that to faded, and that was actually today, which is pretty crazy. And it doesn't do much, but it takes away clutter from the screen from what I've seen. So there's that. Now obituaries is on default. The minimap rotation is default. I actually switched weapon auto cycle on empty to off because it's a little weird, once you run out of ammo, automatically switching, for me, muscle memory, I automatically want to switch with Y, and if it's automatically switching on its own, well, that's going to be a little problem because I will be switching back to the weapon that already has its mag, completely cleared out. Now moving on to auto sprint, I always keep that on because it's just less movement of my thumb on my left thumb. I don't have to always click it down, and double tap sprint is default. I've never used it before. I never plan on using it ever. Now moving on to incoming damage feedback. I actually do that on 2D. I believe it was originally 3D, but just the 2D, I feel it just feels a little better for me. And I mean, that's just personal. The incoming damage feedback is more of a personal thing. 3D, 2D, it doesn't matter. It's still gonna make a look on the screen. And as a matter of fact, there's actually a way to do both of them, which is the third one. I've tried all of them. 2D is the best one so far. So everything else for gameplay is actually just default, as I said before. So let's now move on to the controller tab. Now I do have the button layout for the second segment of this tab, but for now let's just look at the base, setting page, and everything on the top is default. But when we move down to the movement and aiming, that's when things change. Now my look sensitivity is a 3, which is default, and my look sensitivity for the ADS is 2, just because I don't feel comfortable running the ADS the same as the look. It just does not work out, and if you've tried it before, if it works for you, good for you, but it would never work out for anyone who plays with default controls. Now I don't have anything for per optic settings, those are all default, so I'm going to skip that. And my response curve, which is probably the most important part, is steady. Now a lot of people use default, and I guess that's perfectly fine, but steady seems to do really well with this, sensitivity. Now I'm running just the standard controller for Xbox One S. It's nothing fancy. I don't even have a controller grip on it. It's just a default white controller, and this sensitivity with this response curve does me so well when it comes to killing enemies, and especially at long range. That's when, you know, this response curve hits very well. But moving on, my look dead zone is small and my movement dead zone is also small. Dead zones, I don't necessarily mess with them too much because, you know, right now they're at a very good spot. I never really think to mess with them because I don't get any, you know, controller drift when it comes to the sticks, so I'm good on that. Now, before we move away from the controller tab, I just wanted to go over my controller presets real quick. I only switched one or two things, I guess you would want to call it. And as you guys can see on the left hand side, it shows that I am customizing it. The only thing that I switched would be the crouch and the melee. And my crouch now is actually the click on the R, so the right stick, and my melee is B because I never melee. I don't think it's as useful as, you know, I don't think it's worth the right stick, you know, key. But moving on, the reason why I switch it like this is because crouch spamming is really a good tactic to use in Apex, and because I don't have a scuff controller or I don't have any paddles on the back of my controller, well, it's going to be much easier to do it with R, and you only want to crouch spam when you are in close quarters, which is why accuracy may be just a tad bit difficult to get used to. But in general, this, you know, this key switch really switched a lot for me for Apex. I most likely would have not won most of my games if it wasn't for this. Now, moving on to the video settings, I'm currently running a field of view of 82, and this is a slightly large difference from my last settings video, which I was at a 90 field of view, I believe. And the reason why I switched is mainly because of accuracy. The main difference field of view has is the lower the difference is, the bigger the enemies look, and having that, you know, I guess quote unquote advantage gives you higher accuracy. You know, that's what I've seen, that's what I've felt, and keeping it at 82 or in that 80s range is in general just really nice. Now, moving on to the sprint view shake, I always keep that at minimal. I don't think, you know, the view for sprinting shaking too much is beneficial by any means. It's probably more of a cinematic thing, but I tend to keep that minimal so I don't shake the camera too much. Now, last but not least, let's go over the audio. Now, this is, I believe, the same exact audio that I used in my last video, but for those who did not watch my other settings video, let me go over it real quick. The master volume is always at 100%, sound effects volume is always at 100%, dialogue volume is at 70, music, so for both the music volume in game and also the lobby music, is at 0 because it's kind of unnecessary. Also, I always disable voice chat because I don't want to talk to strangers on the internet, especially on Apex Legends, because most of them don't even have voice chat, so it's not worth it. And finally, convert incoming voice to chat text. I always keep that off. That's never necessary for me because I guess I have working ears, but that's really all the settings as a whole. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like it and also subscribe so you don't miss out on any new content that I drop. With that being said, let's reach 100 subs soon, and I guess I'll be happy. Peace out.